Four friends drove into the Cascade Mountains of Washington State on a Friday morning in September 2019 for what was supposed to be a routine 3-day camping trip. They had done this same trip together for 6 consecutive years. Only one of them walked out alive. Ethan Caldwell stumbled into a ranger station 41 hours after the group's planned return date, disoriented, severely dehydrated, and unable to provide a coherent account of what happened to his 3 friends. His clothing was torn, his hands showed defensive wounds, and his story, when he finally told it, left investigators with more questions than answers. This is the story of what happened on that mountain, and why 6 years later, 2 of his friends have still never been found. The group consisted of 4 lifelong friends from Seattle: Ethan Caldwell, Mark Reyes, Brian Tanaka, and Jessica Hu, all in their late 20s, all experienced hikers who had camped together annually at the same remote site near Glacier Peak since college. They checked in at the trailhead parking area on Friday morning, registering their route with a self-issued wilderness permit, as was standard practice for the area. Cell service was non-existent past the first 2 miles of trail, which none of them considered unusual, given 6 previous trips to the same location without incident. The group was expected to return Sunday evening. When none of them showed up by Monday afternoon and failed to answer calls, Jessica's husband contacted the Snohomish County Sheriff's Office, who initiated a search and rescue operation that evening. Search teams using helicopters and ground units located the group's campsite by Tuesday morning. Tents still standing, sleeping bags inside, cooking equipment laid out as if a meal had been recently prepared. There was no sign of any of the 4 hikers anywhere near the site. Ethan emerged from the forest on his own, nearly 2 miles from the original campsite, late Tuesday afternoon. Found by a search team responding to what they initially believed was an unrelated radio signal from his abandoned phone, which had somehow regained a faint connection. Ethan's account, given in fragments over several days, as he recovered in a hospital, described the group encountering what he called a man in the woods on Saturday evening. Someone who approached their campsite after dark, behaved erratically, and became aggressive when Mark attempted to ask him to leave. Ethan stated that in the chaos that followed, he ran into the forest in one direction, while his 3 friends scattered in others, believing this was their best chance of avoiding harm. He described running for what felt like hours before collapsing, then waking the next morning, completely lost, with no clear memory of which direction led back to the campsite. Investigators were unable to corroborate significant portions of Ethan's account. Search teams found no physical evidence of a 4th person at the campsite, no footprints beyond the group's own, no signs of an intruder's presence in the surrounding area, despite an extensive forensic sweep. Mark Reyes's body was discovered 11 days later by a separate hiking party, roughly 3 miles from the original site, having apparently fallen from a steep, rocky section of unmarked terrain. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death consistent with significant blunt trauma from a fall, though the exact circumstances leading to that fall remained undetermined. Brian Tanaka and Jessica Hu have never been located, despite search efforts spanning several months and involving multiple specialized search and rescue teams covering an area of dense, mountainous forest exceeding 40 square miles. The case has remained the subject of significant scrutiny, particularly regarding the inconsistencies in Ethan's account. Investigators noted that the defensive wounds on his hands were more consistent with the type of injury caused by another person's fingernails during a struggle than injuries typically sustained while running through forest terrain. Ethan has maintained his account has been truthful throughout, and no charges have ever been filed against him, as investigators concluded there was insufficient physical evidence to support any criminal allegation in either direction. The case remains officially classified as an unresolved missing persons investigation rather than a homicide investigation, given the absence of conclusive evidence pointing to foul play. Forensic psychologists who reviewed the case for a documentary covering unsolved wilderness disappearances noted that survivors of genuinely traumatic group incidents often provide fragmented, inconsistent accounts, not necessarily because they are being deceptive, but because acute trauma frequently disrupts memory formation and recall. Mark Reyes's family has stated publicly that they do not believe Ethan was responsible for what happened, citing their long friendship and Ethan's own visible trauma in the aftermath. Brian Tanaka's family has been notably more reserved in public statements, declining most interview requests in the years since. The trailhead where the group began their final trip together now includes additional signage, warning hikers about cell service limitations, and encouraging detailed itinerary registration. Changes implemented partly in response to this case. Ethan Caldwell has not camped or hiked since the incident. In one of his only public statements, given to a local news outlet 2 years after the disappearance, he said, "I think about that mountain every single day. I don't know if I'll ever have real answers, and I don't know if anyone will believe whatever I say. I just know I lost 3 of my closest friends in one night, and I came back alone." Search efforts for Brian Tanaka and Jessica Hu continue periodically, primarily through volunteer organizations specializing in long-term missing persons cases in wilderness terrain. The Cascade Mountains remain exactly what they have always been: vast, beautiful, and capable of holding secrets that may never fully surface. This has been the Dark Truth Files. If this case haunted you as much as it haunted us, share it. Somewhere out there, someone might still have answers. Stay aware, stay prepared, and never underestimate how quickly the wilderness can change everything.